G'day. Even in a meritocracy, there will still be an element of bias. Companies can spend a lot of time and effort trying to make sure that they remove all forms of bias from within their organisation. But the reality is, even in the strictest of meritocracies, there's always going to be some element of bias. You only need to look at professional sports as a good example, particularly team sports. Right now, for example, it's the end of the Australian football season, and so many clubs are deciding who they're going to offer contracts to for next year. And that means that a lot of the older blokes are not going to get offered contracts. And the argument generally goes that if we keep these older players, then the younger players won't get game time. They won't get the chance to get some experience. Now, you could argue, of course, that this is a meritocracy, surely, this professional sport environment. So if the younger boys aren't good enough to force the older boys out, then they don't deserve their spot anyway. But again, the reality is there's always some form of bias. Even if those young boys play super well in the practice matches and do really hard at training, the coach may still have a bias towards the older boy because he's more experienced, because he's seen him do it before, because maybe even their wives are friends and their kids play together, because oftentimes the older boys are sometimes the same age as the coach. So even in a professional sport environment, there's always going to be a level of bias. And so I guess the message is, for you as a company, don't beat yourself up too much about the fact that there are still levels of bias within your organization. Be aware of it, try to control it as much as possible and try to eliminate it as much as you can, but just be aware that even in the strictest of meritocracies, there's always going to be some element of bias. Alrighty, that is it for today. I do thank you for your time, and I will be back again tomorrow. See ya.